But we begin tonight with President Biden, who was not in the U.S. today, but rather at the National Museum of Slavery in Angola, addressing the origin story of America and slavery.
Cruel, brutal, dehumanizing, our nation's original sin. While history can be hidden, it cannot and should not be erased. It should be faced. It's our duty to face our history.
It is a reminder that President Biden is a politician from an era that will very soon be gone. In 48 days, Biden will no longer be president, and with it, the era of presidents like him may dissolve completely. It is an era where leaders of perhaps the world's least humble nation showed some humility on the world stage. Early into his presidency, Barack Obama addressed the horrors of slavery and segregation while speaking in Cairo, Egypt. Though he later rejected it, Bill Clinton considered making an official domestic apology to African Americans for slavery. Even George W. Bush acknowledged slavery's continuing legacy in American life and the need to confront that legacy. These lessons on civility and humility, lessons that stretch back to Abraham Lincoln, will no longer be shown from a U.S. leader. Because the next president has been a flat-out bully his whole life and on the world stage. A tyrant, a thug. And when he is inaugurated next month, the world will be very different because of it. It will be the end of Pax Americana and it will be replaced by the entry of global gangsterism in grotesque display. Late last night, we learned that Donald Trump will attend the reopening celebration for Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris this weekend, his first foreign trip since the election. France, as it were, is a prime example of the creeping autocracy so reflected by MAGA. Far-right and some would say fascist-curious Marine Le Pen is looking to link up with a far-left party to take over the country. We are in the age of global gangsterism, the age folks like Vladimir Putin have planned for decades. Look at this map. It reflects an alarming worldwide trend on the rise in autocracy. These are the countries who had elections this year based on their democracy grade by The Economist. Those colored in blue are authoritarian. Those colored in yellow are hybrid regimes. And those colored in red, including the United States, are deemed flawed democracies. You don't see South Korea on that map because The Economist considers it a full democracy. But check out what's happening in South Korea. President Yoon Suk-yeol of South Korea declared martial law late Tuesday, inciting political chaos within one of our closest allies in Asia. President Yoon has accused opposition parties of sympathizing with North Korea and controlling parliament. Soldiers blocked large crowds from entering the parliament building, even as lawmakers inside voted to block Yoon's decree. While inside, South Korean opposition party staff set up barricades to prevent soldiers from entering the chamber. Does this seem familiar? But then on Wednesday morning, their time, so not too long ago, President Yoon lifted the emergency martial law declaration that he had imposed, bowing to pressure from lawmakers and protesters. The tumultuous 6 hours recall the country's dark pre-democracy period, because South Korea also has had a dark pre-democracy past, which includes martial law imposed there 16 times since the end of World War II, most recently in 1980 after the assassination of military strongman Park Chung-hee the year before. That past doesn't feel as ancient as it once did, there or in many other parts of the world. We are seeing a global trend of the far right surging. It isn't just happening here. But let's bring you back to the U.S. and to our local gangster, Donald Trump. He's not even president yet, and he's already spending his time sitting in his golden palace, Mar-a-Lago, muscling other countries like he's Tony Soprano with a social media site. Doing things like, reportedly, debating whether or not to invade Mexico, threatening BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, with 100% tariffs if they don't commit to trading in dollars and not their own currencies. Demanding Hamas release all hostages being held in Gaza before his inauguration, or there will be, quote, all hell to pay in the Middle East. Even reportedly threatening Canada. According to Fox, when Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau went to Mar-a-Lago this weekend to try to talk Trump out of his 25% tariff threat, Trump apparently suggested that if Canada can't handle the tariffs that would violate the NAFTA upgrade Trump himself signed into law, the USMCA, they should just become the 51st state. Just become the 51st state instead and allow Trudeau to be reduced to governor of the state of Canada, which caused the prime minister and others to laugh nervously. And while some are writing that off as just a joke, just a few hours ago, Trump posted this obviously AI photo of him standing on a mountaintop next to the Canadian flag, looking off into the distance with the caption, "Oh, Canada." And for the record, he appears to be looking at the Matterhorn, which is on the border between Switzerland and Italy, not Canada. Oh, and let's not forget, this is the same Donald Trump who at one point seriously wanted to buy the nation of Greenland, even possibly trade it for Puerto Rico. I wonder what this guy has against Puerto Rico. I'll just keep noodling on it. I'm sure I'll figure it out. Bottom line, this is how Trump operates on the world stage. He acts like he's everybody's boss, like he's the king of the world, which is bad news for basically everybody, unless your name is Vladimir Putin, the boss to Trump's underboss. The question now is, will any other leader stand up to him? And who? Who becomes the leader of the free world when Donald Trump ends Pax Americana as we know it? As Nicholas Grossman writes for The Bulwark, there is no undoing damage in history. It is up to those with power and influence to limit it now, and up to future generations to deal with it later. The post-Cold War international system has serious flaws, but at least there are clear enough rules that charges of hypocrisy mean something. Even rules more honored in the breach will be preferable to the lawlessness Trump's second term could invite. The aforementioned Nicholas Grossman joins me now. He's an international relations professor at the University of Illinois and editor of ARC Digital. Also joining me is Bobby Ghosh, senior editor at Bloomberg. Thank you both for being here. Nicholas, I do want to start with you. Your piece was really excellent. It kind of sparked this open tonight. There are a lot of things you could actually criticize about the whole rules-based order after World War II. It favored the West over what's now called the Global South, what we used to call the Third World. It allowed the West to take resources from some of the countries that are now called BRICS or that are aligned with BRICS and use them for our own interests rather than theirs. There's a lot of things you could complain about. But it was a rule-based order that, in your writing, diminished wars, made the world safer. So what does it mean when Donald Trump breaks that order, ends it, and makes it a multipolar world, which is what Vladimir Putin has always wanted?
Well, it means that we risk going back to something that pretty much nobody alive in America has a memory of, which was before there was this bedrock of American power upon which a lot of these international rules were built. So think about things like open trade, which helped to avoid another Great Depression, of the big alliances of democracies like NATO and the U.S.-South Korea alliance, relationship with Japan or Australia or other countries, and that kept a lot of aggressive war at bay because a lot of the world knew there was a bedrock idea of when you try to, say, redraw borders by force, so you try to threaten an American ally, that then you're going to have to mess with the world's biggest power. And Trump is likely to take the U.S. away from that. And it actually won't be all that difficult because it doesn't really require doing anything. It just mostly requires not doing something, such as not helping a NATO ally that is being menaced by Russia, or not helping Ukraine anymore try to keep its independence.
Right. And, you know, Bobby, the couple of things that Nicholas mentioned are some of the things that are causing the world to sort of veer right? Like people don't like open trade, right? Free trade for a lot of Americans is the great evil. And Donald Trump lied and pretended he was going to end the NAFTA agreement, which, you know, eliminated tariffs between the United States, Canada, and Mexico and made us a free trade zone. People felt, well, that just meant jobs went to Mexico. They went to the cheaper place where people can be paid less. And people think about things like supporting NATO and supporting Ukraine, and they say, we don't want you to do that. We want you to just spend the money here. So Trump and a lot of these far-right people, the Marine Le Pens, all of these people are out there making an argument that the rules-based order is hurting working people. And so they're choosing dictators. You know, it's a very confounding system, but it seems to be all over the world. We have a map here that shows all the places where people are veering toward autocrats. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that is true. And these autocrats, as you say, have done a very good job of misrepresenting what free trade means to ordinary people. Free trade to ordinary people, they've said, means your jobs go away. They don't point out. And by the way, the other side of the argument could make a stronger argument, and they clearly haven't been able to do so for a variety of reasons, that free trade means you can afford more things. Things are cheaper. You can buy a cheaper car. You can buy your cheaper things to furnish your home. Your home itself is cheaper to build because of free trade, because the world is full of places where things can be made cheaper, whereas your economy can focus on high value and high end items and sort of technological superiorities where you can place the bets for your economic future. That argument has not properly been articulated, or at least has not been articulated afresh. And that's something that has been lacking in the public discourse. Nobody is reminding people, or nobody's making doing a good enough job of reminding people that free trade brings all these benefits. These alliances that we have with these countries, NATO, benefits America. It doesn't just benefit those European countries. This narrative that, oh, those countries are free riding on us. It's a flawed, deeply flawed narrative. And the argument against it is because of NATO, we avoided a third world war, and because of NATO, still the chances of a third world war look remote. If NATO breaks out, then that possibility becomes much more real, and guess who's going to have to deal with that third world war, and who will be affected by it, and who in the end will have to go in and help.